Hey YouTube, I'm just here to share some arts and crafts I've been doing, so you don't want to see my ugly mug. I'm going to turn this around, show you what's up. I have a PDF file I'm going to put on my Google Drive. I'll put a link to it in the description here. It's 8 pages. It makes this graph. The tick marks on the bottom are supposed to be 10 centimeters apart, but they came out at 96% of that. It's probably a local problem with my printer. Don't know. Bottom line is, here's a straight line, baseline, that runs from the North Pole to scale. Scale is supposed to be 10 centimeters equals 10 degrees equals 1,111 kilometers. And this line, this straight line, measures all the way down to the equator, which is by definition of, the original definition of the meter was that on a line running through Paris, 10,000 kilometers would be the distance from the North Pole to the equator. So 1,000 meters would be 1/10,000th of that distance, and 1 meter would be 1,000th of a kilometer. So that's the definition of a meter. That's why this is 10,000. And there are 9 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 intervals to the North Pole. So each of those intervals is 1,111 kilometers. That's 10,000 divided by 9. So the other thing that is by definition, latitude and longitude. And we're only going to worry about latitudes here. And, for example, Westchester County, New York, at their airport, if you're standing at that airport and you want to use celestial navigation to determine your latitude, you're going to take a sight line with a sextant to Polaris, and you're going to measure with the sextant and determine that Polaris is at 41 degrees, 4 minutes, and 1 second of elevation. You will see Polaris along this line. Okay? Polaris. So that is the elevation at Westchester, New York. By definition, that's what it means. You see Polaris at that angle from the horizontal when you look for it with a sextant from there. So, because we know how many kilometers are in 10 degrees, we know how many kilometers are in 1 degree, and we know how many kilometers, slightly less than 5,555 kilometers, is the distance from Westchester County to the North Pole. That is the flat baseline of a triangle. And this is an angle that we know by definition. And so we can work from the baseline, and the definition of elevation is a straight vertical line. So Polaris is on a straight line directly above the North Pole. So we can work out this triangle, and when viewed from Westchester, New York, at the latitude of Westchester, New York, Polaris appears to be 4,735 kilometers high. However, by the same logic, when you view Polaris from Assiniboia, Saskatchewan, Canada, which we find here at 49 degrees, 0.6328 of a degree. Sometimes locations are given in decimal degrees instead of degrees, minutes, seconds. It is what it is. Anyway, when you view Polaris from Assiniboia, it appears to be higher because it's at a higher angle. And the baseline there is fixed. If you go to Puerto Vallarta, as, for example, one relative of the potato is going to be there in February at an anarchist convention. If he should look at Polaris from Puerto Vallarta in the middle of a dark night, on a clear night, he'll see it at 20 degrees, 40 minutes, 48 seconds north. and he is just shy of 7,777 kilometers from the North Pole there. And that 20 degrees 40 minutes elevation is going to make it appear to him like Polaris is 2,907 kilometers high. The problem is, and this last one is the apparent elevation from Aruba. Aruba is 12.5 degrees north of the equator. So the problem with this is the Polaris is one thing. It exists at one height. Whether it's millions or hundreds or thousands or whatever distance light years away, according to the globe model, or if it's at some elevation attached to the underside of a solid dome over a flat Earth. Polaris is a single object. It's a physical object that emits light. Hello, cat. Polaris is a single physical object that emits light. It has to be in a single location. It can't be at locations ranging from 1,900 to 5,276. And in fact, if you go all the way to the equator, where the elevation angle of Polaris is 0, that indicates that Polaris should be, help me out, cat, there, on the ground at the North Pole. Okay, because that's what a 0 elevation angle gives you. It follows this heavy line all the way under the cat's tail to the North Pole. That's how it looks if you actually measure Earth flat. Earth is always measured flat. Gives you a result by basic trigonometry that does not work. Print this out, see for yourself, find your own location on this line. Plot where you think Polaris is, and then explain to me why it's at a different place for me, and a different place for the guy in Saskatchewan, and a different place for the guy in Puerto Vallarta.